Langley, Virginia, CIA headquarters. Michael Hawk Turner's face was as cold as a soldier's should be. After 14 years in the Marines, he had silenced targets in the Afghan mountains and the streets of Baghdad. But today's mission, this was different. Only two people sat inside the conference room, CIA Director Helen Ward and a senior operations officer. On the screen, a satellite image glowed. A snow-covered Russian base deep in Siberia. Target, General Viktor Sokolov. Director Ward's voice carried that icy steel that belonged only within Washington's walls. He controls Project Oral, a weapon system so advanced it could destabilize the global balance of power in weeks. There was no doubt or fear in Hawk's eyes. He asked only one word. Objective. Terminate, the director replied. No arrest, no trial, just one clean shot. You'll enter Moscow as a Canadian journalist. From there, a local asset will supply everything you need. The Russians can never know this happened. The operations officer slid a slim file across the table. Inside, cover identity, passport, hotel booking, and one name. Code name, Volkov. Location, Gorky Park. Hawk closed the file, stood up, and said, "When do I leave?" "Tomorrow." "And Hawk?" The director locked eyes with him. "There's no extraction plan. Once you're in Russia, you're on your own." Moscow International Airport. Snowflakes floated in the air as Hawk moved through the crowd. His passport, stamped with a Canadian press ID, passed without suspicion, without questions. In his bag, only a laptop and a camera. Normal, ordinary, journalist. But the real mission wasn't in the bag. The real mission was waiting for him in the shadows of Moscow. After customs, he took a taxi. Outside the window, the Kremlin's red walls and Soviet-era buildings stood wrapped in snow. Moscow was a city of ice, but a war burned beneath its surface. At the hotel, Hawk locked his room and opened the file again. One line stood out. Meet Volkov. Midnight. Gorky Park bench, near the frozen pond. In his diary he wrote, "No weapon, no backup, just a city full of enemies. Volkov better be real." He looked out the window. Snow fell endlessly. In his steel-gray eyes lived the determination that only a sniper carries. Russia is cold, but my shot will be colder. Moscow, midnight. The city lay buried under snow. Street lamps spilled their yellow glow, only for the wind to scatter it away into the dark. Hawk tightened his collar, wrapped a blue scarf around his neck, and tried to melt into the crowd. Gorky Park, Moscow's most famous recreational ground. By day, families came here to skate, but at night, only silence and snow remained. Built in the 1930s under Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, the park was meant to show people a socialist paradise. But after the Cold War, it had become a favorite meeting spot for Moscow's underworld and black market deals. Near the frozen pond sat a man in a long overcoat, a Shanka hat pulled low, beard heavy on his face. His eyes carried the mix of weariness and sharpness that only old soldiers had. This was Volkov. Hawk took the bench beside him. For a few moments, neither spoke. Then Volkov finally said, in lightly accented English, "Americans still trust Russians for their dirty work?" Hawk gave a cold smile. "Only the ones who survived the Cold War." Volkov handed him a leather duffel bag. Hawk unzipped it just enough to see. Rifle parts neatly wrapped. Barrett M82A1, a .50 caliber anti-material sniper rifle. Effective range, 1.8 kilometers. A single round could stop the engine block of a tank. Volkov's voice dropped to a warning tone. "This gun, it's not just a weapon. In Moscow, it's a death sentence if they catch you with it. Russia has zero tolerance for foreign arms. If the FSB finds this, you won't see prison. You will simply disappear." Hawk checked each part with his fingertips. Barrel, receiver, bipod, scope, all in perfect condition. His Marine training came back like muscle memory. To him, a rifle was like an old friend, every part tied to a memory. Volkov lit a cigarette and studied him. "You Americans always think war is simple. But in Russia, war is survival. Moscow is full of eyes. FSB, Mafia, even the babushkas notice strangers. You'll need more than a rifle. Hawk closed the bag and replied with only 5 words. I'll need 1 shot. That's all. The silence returned. Only the wind and the clinking of snow remained. A Russian patrol car rolled by in the distance, its blue lights glinting off the ice. Hawk thought of a line for his diary. In Russia, silence is louder than bullets. Moscow industrial outskirts. Volkov's old black Volga moved slowly down a snow-covered road. Outside the window, smoke rose from factory chimneys, and frozen warehouses stretched into the distance. Safe house, Volkov said simply. They entered an abandoned factory. Inside, only a dim light bulb swung from the ceiling. Down in the basement, concrete walls surrounded an improvised shooting range, the kind of place Moscow's underworld used for contraband and illegal weapons testing. Hawk unpacked the rifle barrel and began assembling the weapon with precision. Each click of metal echoed faintly in the silence. As he attached the scope, a memory flashed. Afghanistan's desert, stopping a Taliban technical jeep with a single shot from 1.4 kilometers away. Volkov pushed open an iron door. Inside sat a rusted car engine block. Target practice, he said with a grin. Hawk recalled his Marine sniper training. Breathing. A sniper never fires in haste. He squeezes the trigger during the natural respiratory pause. The moment between breaths. Wind. Every bullet carves an arc through the air. A .50 caliber round cuts wind better than most, but at a kilometer's distance, even a 1-inch deviation could mean a missed kill. Coriolis effect. Over extreme distances, Earth's rotation itself bends a bullet's path. Marines call it the Earth's spin problem. Hawk lay prone, resting the rifle on its bipod. Through the scope, the crosshairs pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He remembered a line he once wrote in his diary. A sniper's world is measured in heartbeats and millimeters. He placed his finger on the trigger, inhaled, held his breath, then gently squeezed. Boom! The shot thundered through the basement, shaking the walls. The round punched a gaping hole straight through the engine block. Volkov lit a cigarette, watching smoke curl in the cold air. Beautiful. Barrett speaks Russian now. Hawk looked at the smoke rising from the rifle's barrel. Not Russian, he replied with an icy smile. Universal. The Barrett M82 has such violent recoil that an untrained shooter can suffer shoulder injuries after just 2 shots. Only trained marksmen can handle it. Originally designed in the 1980s for anti-vehicle roles to disable light armor, radar installations, and even aircraft on the ground. Nickname, the Light 50. Hawk packed the rifle parts back into the bag. Volkov studied him closely and muttered, Remember, Turner, Moscow is not Afghanistan. Out there, every shot is not just a bullet. It's a message. Fire once, and half the city will start listening. Hawk met his eyes. Then I'll make sure my message is the last one they hear.